All right, we're back. And the first order of business is I would like to personally thank my one and only Patreon patron in the God form tier, who has donated $1,000 a month for 5 months in a row. And I think that would at least qualify for a personal thank you. So thank you. Thank you so much for your overwhelming generosity. It's really come in clutch while things have been down. YouTube's recent changes to the algorithm have essentially cut my numbers in half, and I'm not even going to get into how much I'm down from last year, but it's sizable. So yes, thank you. It's really helped fill the gap while I get the next program ready for release, which I'm hoping will be real soon. We have more orange balls showing up for people. That's great. These were sent in from Facebook, so keep sending them in. If an orange ball shows up for you, share it with me. Now, I originally was going to do a mailbag, but not enough questions were sent in. Or there may have been, but they're buried by now. I admittedly have gotten pretty far behind on comments, messages, emails, because all of my spare time has been focused on the next program, because it would just never get finished otherwise. And lately the comments have been like, great job, thanks Frater, short and sweet, which is the way I like them, but it doesn't really make for a good mailbag. So instead, I thought I might talk a little bit about temple altars and directions. So let's get into it. Now, most of you already know that the 4 cardinal directions, north, south, east, and west, correspond with 4 elements. And we've mentioned it on this channel before, but we will do so again. East corresponding with air, south corresponding with fire, west corresponding with water, and north corresponding with earth. Now, when it comes to altar placement, and this is under the assumption that you only have a single altar, ideally it should be placed in the east. Now, I know there are some witches and Wiccans who put their altar in the north. Yeah, okay, I guess. One's putting it at the starting point, one's putting it at the end point. Coming from somebody with a multi-altar setup, I can't really knock it, and if it works, it works. But if you only have a single altar setup, it is preferred that it be placed in the east. But of course, this is also going to be determined by the room that you have as well. Just because you want to place something in the east doesn't mean that you're going to be able to put something there, depending upon the room and the space that you have. We all have to work within the limitations of the space. But why east? Why do we want to put our one single solitary altar in the east if that's all we have? Well, as I said before, one's the beginning point and one's an end point. East is the beginning point. Just as I've said more times than you could probably count, how everything begins in the mind, right? Everything begins with thought. And thought corresponds with the element of air, which corresponds with east. The sun rises in the east. It's the beginning of the day. Now you're going to go to your altar. You're going to go perform some magic. You're going to go do your ritual. You're going to start it at the end. No, you're going to start your ritual at the beginning. As I had gone over in the Sunwise and Widdershins video, when you circumambulate around the circle, from east to south to west to north, as you're moving clockwise around the circle at each cardinal direction, each element is becoming progressively more solid until you're at the north where it's become completely solid, earth. It's a blueprint for manifestation, but that blueprint for manifestation begins in the east with air. There's so much symbolism that is encoded into the cardinal directions and the sacred circle. Now, what if you have only a single altar, but you have nowhere to put it in the east? What then? I mean, let's face it, not nearly every home is going to even align perfectly with the cardinal directions. I mean, you could have all the walls in your home facing northwest, northeast, southeast, southwest. Where are you going to put your altar then? Well, in these situations, you're going to have to make a declaration of east. We're going to call it magical east. And this really only need be done in the room that you're using. Whichever wall that you have your altar on, you're going to declare that direction magical east. And by doing so, all the other directions are automatically declared as well. And you're going to treat that direction as being east when you're in that room, when you are at your altar. And this is how we get around that limitation. But you need to declare it. Now within this room, this is going to be east. Now it's not perfect, it's not ideal, but homes rarely are. So it's what we do. You're still going to want to use the wall and put your altar in the direction that is closest to true east as you can. This is only really to be used as a last resort when there are no other real options available to you. Now, for those of us who are fortunate enough to have an entire room that we can dedicate as a temple, we'll have our main altar in the middle of the room, but we also have 4 side altars on each wall in the cardinal directions. Again, it may not be possible right away, but this is the goal. In my case, I had to redo and build a portion of the east wall in order to have an altar fit there. I had 2 closets on the eastern wall, one with a single door and one with a double sliding door. Well, I had to change the double sliding door into a single door in order to have enough wall to place an altar there. So renovations may be needed. Now, a finished basement room to me is ideal because there's not any windows that you need to worry about. Now, these 4 altars, once you get them set up, are going to be consecrated and dedicated to the corresponding cardinal directions and their 4 elements that correspond with them. So you're going to have an air altar, you're going to have a fire altar, you're going to have a water altar, and you're going to have an earth altar. So you can keep any ritual tools that may correspond with those elements on their particular altar, as well as any spell work that may pertain to that particular element as well. For example, in the Secrets of Wealth program, I talk about collecting dirt from various locations and keeping it in a little pot. Now, which altar would that be best suited to be placed upon? Well, the earth altar, obviously. What if you were doing love magic? What if you were doing love spells? Which altar would those be best suited to be put upon? Well, any altar but the earth altar, because it's going to depend on what your focus is. If you're going for emotional love, well, the water altar would be best suited towards that. However, if you're going for fiery passion or animal magnetism, the fire altar may be best suited towards your needs. Or perhaps you just want to get into somebody's head and have them thinking about you. Well, then the air altar is the one that you want. Or maybe you want to run the trifecta and do all 3, beginning with air and working towards water. Get them thinking about you. And then spark the passion and then lead it to emotional love. And as you do so, then you work your way from one altar to the next to the next. Now, these are just a couple examples so that you can see that each altar has its own purpose, unlike those who just have a single altar in the east for every purpose, with the assumption that it's not dedicated towards a particular deity, in which case it would only be used for purposes pertaining to that deity. We're just talking about an all-purpose altar for you to do your work with. Obviously, being able to have your own room for a temple and 5 altars is the more desirable of the options, but not everyone's going to have that, so a solitary altar in the east would serve for all purposes. However, one thing that you can do, divide the altar itself into sections. So with the altar on the eastern wall, the back of the altar would be the eastern part of the altar, the front of it would be the western part, the right would be the south, the left would be the north. And in that way, you could place things upon your altar according to their cardinal direction and corresponding element. Okay, so I hope this has given everybody some food for thought pertaining to altar placement and direction. Everything in magic is symbolic, the way they're placed, set up, the direction they're facing, all of it. So perhaps this will help some of you out with your particular setup. Now, before we go, I want to share a couple pictures of viewers who have gotten the latest Mind and Magic limited edition shirt. They look great, so if you happen to have any, send in your pictures. I'd love to see them. This particular design is only going to be available for a short while longer. By the time this video reaches YouTube, it will begin to be phased out. So if you like what you see, get it while you can. And that will about do it for today. I hope you enjoyed this video. Leave a like and share it in appreciation if you did. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/mindandmagic. Follow me on Twitter at Frater Xavier. And join us at Patreon or Subscribestar if you don't wish to be a month late to the party. Thank you all for listening, and I'll see you next time. Take care.